Welcome to the Undisputed podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Taft. This podcast is the full show from today's episode of Undisputed from start to finish. They've got a busy slate, so Skip, Shannon, let's get to it.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Undisputed Live from Los Angeles. I'm Jen Hale, here with Skip Bayless, Shannon Sharpe joining
Hi,
us
Jen. How are
live
you?
from Atlanta. I'm fabulous. How about yourself?
Oh, look who's still hiding from me. He's hiding from me in Atlanta in his little box.
Hey, Skip, how I look at the monitor? Am I looking good today?
You got that big inflated ego head that's a little larger than usual, but that's okay. But I believe you're still in Atlanta because you feared the worst in Game 5 in Toronto, and you feared the worst in Game 6 back at Oracle. So you're in hiding, and it's okay with me. Just stay there. You can stay there next week.
Because I already know what's going to happen when Kawhi do what he does tomorrow night. I don't want to see you. I don't want to be around you on Friday because it's not going to be a pretty sight.
Okay. Well, let's talk about what he did to me a year ago. That's what I want to talk about.
You're not bitter at all.
Not at all.
Shannon will be back next week, and we can settle up the due situation. So let's start this morning with Kevin Durant. He suffered that devastating Achilles injury Monday night. ESPN reports KD flew to New York to undergo an MRI instead of heading back to the Bay with the team. Now, Kawhi Leonard dealt with his own injury, of course, a quad last season with the Spurs. The Claw played just 9 games with San Antonio because of that injury before getting traded to Toronto. After Game 5, Kawhi gave his thoughts on what KD is going through. Let's take a listen.
It's devastating, like you say, you work so hard to get to this point. These are the last games. You see he tried to come out and, push himself. But, obviously, he tried to do a move. And, I feel bad for him, I've been in that situation before. I hope he, has a speedy recovery and, just gets healthy and hope that he's going to be okay mentally just throughout the whole rehab process.
Kawhi's injury somewhat controversial, but Shannon, how similar do you think these two situations are?
I think they're very similar. I think the thing is that what Kawhi did is that Kevin Durant didn't do is that he got a reprieve because even though the doctor cleared him, he didn't feel comfortable, Skip. He did come back. He played because he's missed the start of the season. He came back, played 8 games. He didn't feel quite right. He sat out a couple of games, played one more game, went and got a second opinion, and then shut it down for the rest of the year. The thing that happened with Kevin Durant is I don't know for certain, and like I said, I don't have any inside information, Skip, whether or not Kevin Durant got a second opinion. But he did not get the reprieve that Kawhi Leonard got because even though Kawhi played those 8 games, he didn't do any more damage. He didn't completely rupture the quad. Kevin Durant didn't get that reprieve. Kevin Durant went out there when he wasn't 100% after getting clearances from the doctors, and we all believe that he ruptured an Achilles that was already probably partially torn. And so these situations are very, very similar. And Kawhi is saying, I understand what he's going through. See, Skip, for me, it comes down to as simple as this. If the Warriors were up 3-1, would they have put Kevin Durant on the court? If they can answer that no, then he shouldn't have been out there to begin with. Because what you have to realize is that the Golden State Warriors are still a business. This is about a transaction. And so they monetize or they prioritize their number one goal, their number one priority, which is to win the championship over Kevin Durant's health. And see, a team will never tell a player, you will play tomorrow, you will do this. But they know once you get to that level, be it professional baseball, basketball, or football, they appeal to the competitive side. They'll appeal to the brotherhood, Skip. Skip, you know why they got on that plane to come see you, KD. You understand that you're the best player on this team. You understand, they understand that they can't win without you. That appeals to Kevin Durant. Because, Skip, remember, he gets into it a lot of times when guys question him. Also, it was reported that some of the executives in that organization, some of the players in that organization, had questioned Kevin Durant. Skip, what causes Kevin Durant to snap back on social media? Was some kid from Iowa or Minnesota says, Kevin, you a sucker. You supposed to be the best player, and you jump on board with the Golden State Warriors after they won 73 and went 73-9. So now you appealing to the man's competitive side. You like, I ain't no sucker. I'm tough. Because all the time, Skip, this is a machismo. basketball, football, it's about bravado. I'm better than you. So you appeal to that side to get them to go. Skip, that man was not even close. It was reported that his workout session went terrible. Before I turn over to you, Skip, I dislocated my arm my first year back in Denver. I think it was 2002. I missed about 4.5 weeks. And so they said, okay, I got cleared. The arm felt good. Skip, what I did is that they had a guy on the practice squad, a linebacker. We padded it up, and we went out there on Tuesday, which is normally the guy's day off, before I even practiced on Wednesday in order for me to play on Sunday. Now, I don't know the protocol in basketball, but normally, did they do Boogie Cousins like that? Did they say, Boogie, you're going to practice tomorrow and you're going to play the next day? Or did they give Boogie an opportunity? Did Boogie practice what? 5, 10, 15, 20 practices before they ultimately put him out there? You see where I'm going with this, Skip? But in actuality, when you look at Kawhi, when you look at KD, the only difference is that Kawhi got really, really smart. He got a second opinion, and that doctor told him to shut it down, and that's what he did.
You finished?
I'm done.
Good. Jen, is the show over yet? I don't know. I haven't
You got a
spoken
few
yet.
Yeah, you know what?
Okay. Now it's my turn. Oh, okay. Thank you.
You always do. You always do that.
This topic angers me more by the day. And what that man, that guy number 2 who used to play for my San Antonio Spurs, had the audacity to say about what he did in San Antonio compared to what happened to Kevin Durant is completely out of bounds and completely over my edge, because it's sending me over the edge. So I got 2 big points here, and the second one I'm going to throw right back in your face. But first of all, just to reiterate, what this man did a year ago to my Spurs was, it started out as a thigh bruise, and it lingered to the point that the most conservative and patient medical staff in all of sports, San Antonio's, finally gave in just to appease number 2 and his outside opinion doctor and his outside opinion physical therapist that had nothing to do with the Spurs. They appeased him by tagging it tendinosis, or what is that? I don't even know what it was.
Tendinosis.
Some weird term that I hadn't heard of to that point. And it indicated there was some inflammation of the quadriceps tendon, that it wasn't just musculature, that it went into the tendon, which I never believed, because no San Antonio doctor ever believed that. And I'm going to say this one more time just because he brought it up, comparing his situation to Kevin Durant's. I spoke to a doctor who told me he had examined that guy, number 2, back in San Antonio, and he said, I could find nothing wrong, that it was all in his head. But this tendinosis, or whatever it was, lingered into January to the point that it forced the San Antonio Spurs, the most player-friendly organization in all of sports, to finally call out this guy publicly by saying, hey, we have completely cleared him for all basketball activities. And what did he do? He shut it down. He threw it right back in their faces by saying, I'm still hurt, I can't play. And then it became clear that his Uncle Dennis had taken over all of his basketball affairs, all of his business affairs, and it became very clear through lots of reports from lots of national reporters that Uncle Dennis wanted him out of San Antonio, either in New York or New Jersey or Brooklyn or in LA. And because of that, he shut it down for 73 games, which finally forced the hand of 2 potential future they're cinch Hall of Famers, Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker, to call a team meeting and put him on the hot seat and say, are you with us or not? This was in late March, just as the playoffs were looming, and they thought they had a chance to make a deep run, maybe even get to the finals. And I'm sure in the meeting he probably said nothing, because he rarely says anything, and they interpreted that as a no. And Tony Parker, God bless him, he's now retired. He just recently retired, as you know. Tony Parker, who has 4 rings.
Years ago.
What's that? Oh, he retired a couple of years ago?
He
Yeah.
retired a couple of years
he
ago.
was a finals MVP, and he's got 4 rings, and he made way more fourth quarter clutch shots than this guy will ever dream of making. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. You have no idea. You never watch my Spurs because you dismiss them as broccoli, and you don't eat broccoli. I eat broccoli every day. Chicken and broccoli every day, twice a day. That's what I subsist on. That's what you should do. The point is that Tony Parker had ruptured his quadriceps tendon the year before that in the playoffs against Memphis. And he called out this guy by saying, and I quote, "My injury is 100 times worse than his." 100 times. And that's exactly right. That frames it. The Hall of Famer Tony Parker said, "My injury is 100 times worse than his," and that's all you needed to know. And obviously, that was the final nail in the coffin for that guy in San Antonio. And now he's in Toronto. Go ahead.
If you don't mind me asking, the San Antonio Spurs doctors cleared Kawhi. The Golden State Warriors doctors cleared Kevin Durant. And what happened?
Okay, but they're...
Now, both of them cleared. The doctor said
difference.
everything was okay.
Okay, here's the big difference, and we went through this yesterday. Not to get too medically technical here, but Kevin Durant was said to have had, according to Golden State's press releases, a calf strain, right? So I'm going to have to accept that he had a calf strain. That's what they believed, and that's what they told the public.
Hold on, Skip. Skip, since when do you start accepting what teams say? That's not the Skip Bayless I know.
That's my premise to start with. And again, for those who don't know, the calf has 2 muscles in it. The gastrocs, the big one, the soleus is the little one, right? And they meld into the Achilles tendon at the body. They kind of narrow and meld into the Achilles. And occasionally, any strain of the calf can signal that you have some pre-existing condition in the Achilles that you better monitor. Well, obviously, Kevin Durant, we thought he had a ruptured Achilles on May 8th when he pulled up lame the first time because he looked behind him like, what just hit me in the back of the leg? Well, clearly he had some kind of tear in his Achilles. When they MRI'd the calf on May the 8th, you don't think that was a lower leg MRI? You don't think you could see the Achilles and you could see there was some issue going on with the Achilles? Because it had to have micro tears or some kind of fraying or maybe even a small partial tear that was high risk because the calf muscle completely healed. I told you, I watched his pregame warm-up before Game 5 in Toronto. He looked sensational. He was explosive. He was firing into his jumper. He was pushing off and dunking. And we saw him in the game. Didn't he look 100% healthy as far as a calf strain would go? Okay, but the Achilles was hanging to me by a thread. It was on the thinnest of ice. And one move, one crossover step, and it went. Okay, well... Number 2 in San Antonio wasn't hanging by a thread. He had a thigh bruise. There was no risk of rupturing his quadriceps tendon like Tony Parker did. So I'm sorry. It's an apple to a rotten orange. That's what it is. This was an apple. This was the worst. So, look. Okay, let me just throw this back at you. Okay. If, in fact, number 2 is the smartest player ever, that he's the one who stands up to organizations and says no. He took off 22 games this year because I'm not right. Well, was he right against Milwaukee in the conference finals? You kept telling me he's playing hurt. He's playing hurt. I heard it that day, like 8 straight days right here. Okay, if he was playing hurt, we saw him limping against Milwaukee. Why did he not shut it down then? Because he's risking next year's free agency. Just shut it down. If you think, and finally, I thought it was his quad, it was his knee. So if you're in danger of rupturing your ACL, let's say, why don't you just say I can't go? Because he said he can't go in San Antonio, right?
Skip, no, you and I both know there's a difference between tendonitis and the potential to having an ACL tear. And what had happened is that because he had overcompensated for his right quad, he had put so much stress and strain on the left knee, now he had tendonitis in the left knee. Skip, see what bothers me is that Steve Kerr said the doctors told him, or it was relayed to him, that he couldn't hurt the whatever the injury was, he couldn't make it worse. Isn't that what the Boston Celtics doctors told Isaiah Thomas with his hip? that he couldn't hurt it any worse after he went out there, dropped 53 on the night that his sister died tragically because he was playing for his brothers? You see what got Kevin Durant is the very thing that you say about Kawhi Leonard. He quit on his team. The one thing, Skip Bayless, you've covered sports for 40 plus years. You know the one thing that you could never say to an athlete is what? He quit. You can never say that.
Number two, quit on my San Antonio Spurs. I'm going to say it again. He just flat out quit.
And Skip, you're making my point. And because Kevin Durant did not want to be labeled as the guy that quit on his team, that quit on his brothers, after they flew to the Hamptons, interrupted his vacation, they appealed to that side of you, Skip. Man, this is how they do it, Skip. A 70% of Kevin Durant is better than 98% of the NBA players. Yeah, that might be the case, but a 70% healed Achilles tendon has a greater propensity to rupture than 100% healed Achilles.
Again.
So, Skip Bayless, you know this.
I am with you on Kevin Durant, but you cannot bring the other guy into this equation because he does not qualify for this equation.
Yes, he does.
He does not. Okay, then you're not answering my question. You keep changing the subject.
What's the question?
Why doesn't number two shut it down right now? Why didn't he just say, I can't play game 6 because my knee hurts?
Skip.
Every time he has any kind of ache or pain, he shuts it down. That's what he did. Listen, I watched him carefully for 7 years in San Antonio. He was constantly hurt. He constantly had a calf or a quad or a shoulder or an elbow or a hand or an ankle. He was constantly hurt. The most minor ache or pain, he shut it down. Why doesn't he shut it down right now? Because he's exaggerating his injury to plant excuses in the minds of the media and especially Shannon Sharpe. That's what's happening. Excuses are being planted.
Let me answer your question. You and I both know, Skip, tendonitis is different than a partial tear of the Achilles. You and I both know that tendonitis is something that if you get it warm and you keep it warm, you can be okay. It's when you sit down or you get into a position that it starts to ache. You know that overcompensation on one body part will lead to a strain on another body part. You understand that, Skip.
So you're you're admitting to me that tendonitis or tendinosis, not that big a deal. You warm it up, you play through it. Obviously, that's the case. Yeah. So why did he shut it down for 73 games in San Antonio with tendonitis, basically? And I'm not even going to give him that.
Because, Skip, he felt that it was far more than he could push through. He's pushing through this. And all you had to do was take the guy at his word. And first of all, take the guy at his word and give him a max contract. If you don't think he's a max player, why are you even concerned whether or not he shuts it down or not? You should be wanting to rid yourself of him. He's not a max player. He's not tough. He quit on your team. So why all of a sudden was Greg Popovich wanting to fly to San Diego? Why was all this hullabaloo
obviously he's a really good player, and he'd been a good player for them. He'd been a Finals MVP, but he became more trouble than he's worth. I'm good riddance. I'm happy he's gone. I don't need him anymore because you can't count on him.
And yes, you can. Oh, you can count on him. You can depend on him like the first and the 15th.
Those last 3 minutes and 28 seconds of Game 5 the other night in his new house in Toronto, could you count on him? Nope, he disappeared on schedule. Can't count on him.
I bet you 5Ks will do. He will hold the Bill Russell Finals MVP trophy when it's all said and done.
Well, he's going to be the first one to get it for a losing team?
No. First of all, he wasn't the first one. Jerry West did that the first year it was established in 1969.
Like Chuck
but
Howley
that's not going to happen.
For my Cowboys once upon a time for the Super Bowl. Yeah.
And Akeem Olajuwon was most outstanding player in a losing effort also.
That's true.
But that's not
so he's
we're not talking
Jerry
about
West
that, Skip Bayless.
Team, I guess, right?
No, he's not. No, he's not.
You're going to have to
you know what's going to happen,
where your mouth is tomorrow.
Skip, this is your worst nightmare.
It is not my worst nightmare. He was my worst nightmare in San Antonio, and he's gone. Thank God he's gone.
Skip, you believe that the man quit on your roster and forced his way out of San Antonio. You mean to tell me you're going to sit back and take this? A guy wins goals. You said crime pays. So he sat down on your team, forced his way out, goes to another team. They sent him as far away from where he wanted to go as you could possibly get. Toronto is so far away from LA, the Lakers, or the Clippers, you can barely find it on the map.
True.
He goes to Toronto, and he wins a title. He's Finals MVP. And you mean to tell me the Skip Bayless that I've known very, very well for the last 3 years is going to sit down and take this? Okay.
Okay.
No, you're going to be very upset.
I'm not going to be very upset. I've told you all along, you can root for him all you want to. You can leap on his bandwagon and drive it after you picked the Golden State Warriors to win this in 6 games, and you're already defunct in your first pick. Now you're picking Toronto, I guess in 6, though we're going to have to bet like 4 cases of Diet Mountain Dew just on Game 6, but you wouldn't take that bet yesterday. It still sits right in the middle of the table if you want to claim it right here, right now.
Yeah, we're gonna make the pick tomorrow.
Okay, we're going to do it tomorrow, but I'm going to sum up Kevin Durant. All I know is I'm on your side with this. Did he know he had an Achilles pre-existing issue? Did he know something was going on with his Achilles? Because if he did, then he accepted the risk and he took one for the team. He said, they need me, we're down 3-1. Obviously, the situation in San Antonio was nothing like this right now with the desperation that they were in Game 5. And I admire Kevin for saying, I'm going to try to do this for my team. Again, he paid the ultimate price for it, not with his life, but with his basketball life, obviously. But now it's intriguing to me that he has just dismissed the Golden State doctors and he went back to Marty O'Malley, doctor in New York, who's very well known, and he's done a lot of surgeries on he did Joel Embiid, and he did Ben Simmons, a lot of the big NBA stars, but he did Kevin's, remember his Jones fracture surgery that he had in 2015?
Yes.
He had 3 surgeries,
yes.
and the third one was Marty O'Malley in New York, and he nailed it. Took a little piece of his pelvis and put it in his foot and bone grafted and saved his career.
Yeah.
I thought his career was in jeopardy. So now he's gone to Marty O'Malley, who, by the way, happens to be the Nets team doctor, but that probably doesn't play in this. You never know. But the point is, he's not using the Golden State doctors anymore. So he's gone outside, and I think that's a bad sign for Golden State.
Gentlemen, we got to leave this one here. Let me point out, KD does turn 31 in September. So we may know more out of New York about the injury and the timetable to return later today. Certainly, this injury has a lot of ripple effects, including on free agency and perhaps on that trade situation down in New Orleans. Speaking of which, are the Knicks out of the Anthony Davis sweepstakes? We're going to be discussing that up next. And don't forget to check us out every day on the Fox Sports Channel on SiriusXM. We'll be right back.
No mercy.
The Knicks are expected to have a busy offseason acquiring assets, but SNY reports New York is hesitant to trade, quote, significant assets to land New Orleans superstar Anthony Davis. The report adds the Knicks are uncomfortable giving up too much for one high-profile player, kind of like they did with Carmelo Anthony a few years back. Kevin Durant's injury status will have a big influence this offseason since KD was rumored to be headed to the Big Apple as a free agent. There are only so many superstar free agents or trade players available, and it's likely that pool just thinned. AD only 26. Shannon, how do you think Durant's injury affects the trade market now for AD?
Well, if I'm AD and I want to compete and win a title right away, I do not want to go to the Knicks. Skip, I do not believe Kevin Durant is playing in the 2020 season. Basically, he's a 2021 player. It's almost as if you get a great price for a Renoir, but you know you got to do some work to the frame, need a few touch-ups, so you got to send it off. Now, it's not like you're going to turn it down because it is what it is. It's a Renoir. So you want it, just know you're not going to hang it until 2021. Well, Kevin Durant is still Kevin Durant. And just know he's not going to play for you until 2021. If I'm Anthony Davis, I'm trying to compete right now. There's only one place that he can really go that was on his list that he can compete right now. Skip, and you know where that is. And they still have the best assets. What I don't get for the Knicks is they say, well, we don't want to give up. Let me tell you what Anthony Davis is. Skip, before this trade talk really jumped off, in 41 games, Anthony Davis was 29, 13, 2.5. He's 26 years old. I'm trying to think, what player do you have Knicks? Or what do you think RJ Barrett will be? RJ Barrett will be. Do you think any of those guys that's on your roster right now will ever, on their best season, give you 29-13? Skip, even though he sat out these games here and there, they was playing with him because they were upset because he requested a trade, and he was, he wasn't on the sideline, he wasn't doing this or he wasn't doing that. He was still 26-12. Can I interest you in that? Skip, it makes no sense to me. So it seems like, okay, we don't want to really give up Kevin Knox, R.J. Barrett, Moutier, Dennis Smith Jr. Really? Really? For a chance at Anthony Davis, Skip, I believe Anthony Davis is a transcendent figure. I believe he's that type of player. And you put him with you-know-who out in L.A. in the purple and gold, the sky's the limit. And the sky is a championship. And that would be next year. So I do not – the Knicks, so now all of a sudden, this is even looking even better than I could possibly hope to imagine. Because it was reported yesterday that Rich Paul, I think it was in Sports Illustrated, Skip, Boston, go on and trade for him. You get 1 year.
Sure.
Fact.
I get that. Yeah.
Oh, Red Paul, swing your weight, Rich. Rich a small man, Skip.
He is.
But he a lot heavier than what he would assume. I mean, you look at him, his stature, like, man, look at old little Rich. But he weigh like 700 pounds. Because when he swings his weight, things move.
Well, wait, he swung and missed at last year's trade deadline, right?
Skip, at the end of the day, it didn't happen then. Because guess what, Skip? Sometime in the movie, you don't get the girl in the beginning of the movie, but in the end, you walk off into the sunset happily ever after.
Okay. So before I address Jen's question, I got to address your opening analogy of your Renoir that has a scuffed frame or whatever it is. You can get that fixed in a day. It doesn't take a year before you get your Renoir back. No. I don't know. That's
No,
I
Skip.
think you can just
Skip.
send it out. Get it reframed.
No. Sometimes, Sometimes you got them damages. You got to send that thing overseas. You got to let them masters.
I wouldn't know.
You got to let that thing. I might have something hung up on my wall. You don't know, Skip.
You might have pictures of Shannon Sharpe all on every wall in your house, right? Back in the day, didn't you used to be Shannon Sharpe?
Skip, why you dry snitch? Why would I tell you something? You come right back on air.
I didn't even know. I've never even been in his house.
Yeah, you did.
Well,
yeah, you did.
okay.
I told you.
My turn.
I told you I might have a picture or two.
Okay, I'm here to announce to you, you finally got your wish. The Western Conference door just swung wide open for your man LeBron James and your Los Angeles Lakers because the best player on the planet, Kevin Durant, will not play in the West next year because he won't even play in the East next year. To your point, it's almost certain he won't play at all next year. Maybe he could come back for the playoffs wherever he is next year, but that's even doubtful because we're so late in the game now, and he'll have the surgery, I assume, in the next few days. But it's usually about a year until you can come back full strength. So I would doubt that he would suddenly come back for next year's playoffs, wherever he might be with, who knows, with the Nets or the Knicks or the Clippers or wherever he might be. But now it comes down to your man, LeBron James. For the first time in 14 years, he didn't have to play in the playoffs because he didn't get to play in the playoffs. So you can't throw the too many miles excuse back at me. The high mileage excuse just went out the window because your aging superstar entering his 17th season just got to rest and revitalize all through the playoffs, right? So you have told me that he will come back better than ever next year after his very disappointing first year. And you have already predicted he will be an MVP candidate next year, if not win his 5th MVP, right? So we got that on the record.
That is correct.
But there are also
that's on record.
Rampant reports that no premium free agent is interested in coming to join LeBron and especially to play for this clown act that is the Los Angeles Lakers right now, this chaotic clown act featuring Jeannie Buss and Linda Rambis and Kurt Rambis and Rob Pelinka. So if, in fact, no premium will come here, and I don't know if Jimmy Butler's included in premium or Kemba's premium, maybe not, but it basically comes down to AD or bust for LeBron next year in LA, right? And what is it going to take? Because the market is just escalating. David Griffin is in the proverbial catbird seat right now because he knows that LeBron and Rich Paul desperately need their other client, AD, in LA. And he knows...
Actually, Skip.
Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, Skip, he's not in the catbird seat because the Knicks are very, very hesitant. one of the few teams that has assets that the Pelicans could possibly want. One of these teams will say, we don't want to be in another Carmelo Anthony situation. So as these teams pull away from the situation, Kevin Durant possibly being injured, now all of a sudden, hold on, you might only have one team that you can deal with.
Okay, but who is still under contract to the New Orleans Pelicans next year? Anthony Davis.
Let him walk out the door.
Jen knows because she covers the Pelicans. Right? He's
let him
under contract.
Let him walk out the door.
Okay.
He is.
Let it play all the way to next year's trade deadline. Does he want to have to be forced to go sit on the bench after that's all, folks, and the T-shirt that he wore? Do you want him to have to go through that again?
Do you want him back?
I think Catbird's seat is still David Griffin's right now. I think it's very clear that AD wants to go to L.A. and that L.A. desperately needs AD. So I think leverage advantage goes to David Griffin, the new GM of the Pelicans.
Well, Skip, it helps if you have leverage, if you have more than one person bidding on the service. And right now, it seems like the Knicks are very reluctant to bid on the services.
But there have to be 6 or 8 other teams out there that are very interested in Anthony Davis, and they'll say, well, we'll give you this, that. Who knows who they are? They're all laying in the weeds right now. It hasn't been reported.
What?
Well, who knows what?
But, Skip, hold on. If he's made it abundantly clear, now, Anthony, it's reported the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Knicks. Okay, now, he's made it abundantly clear those are his 3 teams. Now, the Celtics say they're still very interested in trading for Anthony Davis. Rich Paul, who is the mouthpiece for Anthony Davis, said, okay, do it. You get 1 year.
Okay.
So are you willing to give up all those assets for 1 year, Skip? Are you?
Speaking of all those assets, are you, Shannon Sharpe, willing to give up what was on the trading deadline table, as was widely reported, that the Lakers were willing to give, that LeBron and Rich Paul were willing to give for AD? And that's all the Lakers' kids. I love the kids way more than you do. Lonzo is going to be a star. He's 21 years of age. I believe Brandon Ingram will make some all-star teams. He's 21 years of age. I believe Kyle Kuzma will make an all-star team. He's 23 years of age. It's youth. It's unrealized potential. And we can throw in now the 4th pick in the draft. Who knows? It could be Darius Garland from Vanderbilt University, yet another pro pipeline star from
he definitely got to go. He definitely got to go.
Okay. So that would be 4 assets. And if you want to throw in Josh Hart, I don't know what would work under the salary cap. But he's going to be a consistently contributing NBA player will be Josh Hart. So throw him in, and all of a sudden New Orleans is back in business. They are. I love this trade. I loved it at the trade deadline. I think your Pelicans should have just said, thank you very much. We're off to the races with the Laker kids.
Well, you know what's worth noting
Skip, if you don't mind,
is that...
hang on 1 second. Yeah, go ahead.
Is that Rich Paul...
Skip, if you don't mind me...
1 second, Shannon.
Go ahead, Jen. Go ahead.
Sorry,
let Jen go ahead and finish her point.
Is that Rich Paul and David Griffin have a really good working relationship. It goes back to their days, championship win with LeBron in Cleveland. So now the lines of communication are at least open. Yeah. And the chances of perhaps a mutually beneficial situation result are very possible.
Okay. Go ahead, Shannon.
Skip, if you don't mind me asking, of all the players that you name, be it Ingram, Kuzma, Lonzo, R.J. Barrett, Darius Garland, Moutier, Kevin Knox, which one of those guys in his best NBA season will give you what DeBrow, AD averages for a career?
Well,
which one of those guys will give you that kind of...
He'll end up being a little better than they will. But you keep saying he's transcended, and I say, what has he transcended? What has he done? Again, have the Pelicans been the most talented? No, they have not been the most talented team. But they have had another all-star in Drew Holiday, and they did have Julius Randle, and I don't see him lift a franchise up and make a deep playoff run. Is he really that guy, or is he that classic? Go ahead.
I do believe that he is, Skip, because, sometimes we get seduced, and we say, well, look at what Magic did. Magic just went to the Lakers, who had the 1980s MVP on their roster. They also had a Hall of Famer in Jamal Wilkes already on their roster. Larry Bird went to a team that ended up having Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, and Nate Archibald on that roster, who's in the Hall of Fame. So it wasn't like they went to situations like Anthony Davis. He went to a situation where it was barren. It was a wasteland. We understand that. The days of you being able to carry one player being able to carry a franchise, Skip, those days are long gone.
Okay,
It's
but
the league
I
is
got
too
it.
talented.
I'm going to say it again. Anthony Davis is a complimentary star, and he would complement what's left of LeBron James as he goes into his 17th
What you mean,
year.
what's left?
Well, he's an aging
What you mean,
player,
what's left?
obviously, and he was
No,
very disappointing last
okay,
year.
getting older.
Yeah.
But can I interest you in 27, 8, and 8?
Can I interest you in 28 and 27, which was the Lakers' record in the games LeBron started last year?
See, and that's the thing. See, the thing is, Skip Bayless, is that we're so not used to seeing LeBron James get injured, having to play with injuries that we know of. Yeah, I'm sure he's had a lot of nicks and knacks over the course of the years, but nothing of this significance. Even with that, even that being said, he still had a better points, assists, rebound than Kevin Durant, and Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George. Only Paul George averaged a tick more points than LeBron James, and he dropped off a cliff, so said Skip Bayless. So imagine with no wear and tear of the playoffs having to carry a team, because remember last year, Skip, he went all the way to the NBA Finals, averaged 34, 9, and 9 throughout the entirety of the playoffs. Imagine what rest and relaxation going to do for this man.
The pressure is now
Recognize, Skip.
tripled on LeBron James. Better have a bounce back.
We don't feel pressure.
No.
We don't even know thing about pressure. How you spell pressure? What is that? Where is it from? We exert pressure. We don't feel
We'll see
pressure.
how it all shakes out, gentlemen. It'll be interesting, that's for sure. Never a dull moment in the NBA right now. Speaking of which, will the Warriors rally enough to win this series? We're discussing that up next.
No mercy.
The Warriors stayed alive Monday night with a crucial victory. Now, Game 6 tips tomorrow. Rob Parker joining us today. Good
What's happening?
morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Shannon. What's up?
Curious what chance
What's
you
up,
give
Rob?
the
How you doing,
Warriors
bro?
to win this series, Rob.
I give them a 0% chance of winning.
Warriors 0%.
Zero.
All right.
And here's the reason why. As I said before this all started, Skip and Shannon, no KD, no title. And it stays the same. And everybody who goes, well, they're going to go back home and they'll force a game 7 and blah, 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 blah. Let's just take a look at how they've done at home. They're 3-0, and I'm talking about Toronto playing at Oracle this
They're
year.
3-0
One
this
regular
year.
season,
Yep.
2 postseason wins.
Yep.
Also, there was a chance when, in the first round, when Golden State was playing the Clippers to close them out in a Game 5. They lost, gave up 129 points on their home court.
They lost twice to the Clippers.
And lost twice there.
Yep.
Here's the other thing. It's not only no KD, no Looney, Andre Iguodala is banged up. I mean, when you start to look at really where they are, there's just a lot of things going on there. And even the game that they just won, the Game 5, they made 12 more three-pointers than Toronto and won by 1 point. It took everything that they had just to be able to win that game. I get Steph. I get Clay. Biggest game of this series was Game 4 when they needed Steph to turn in another Herculean performance after he did in Game 3 with the 47 points. He didn't show up in that game. He didn't play nearly as well, and that Game 4 loss is really the reason why they're in this situation. Because had they won that, they would be in a situation where they still could have won this thing. And even though KD gave them a shot in the arm, maybe some inspiration, I'm not buying that it's enough. If this team was in full strength or whatever, there'd be no question. And one last thing, think about it. This thing should be over. Toronto, if you honestly look at the 5 games, should have won all 5. Golden State had an 18-0 run in the third quarter. If you just stem that a little bit, score a couple of baskets, they don't win that game. And in this game, Kawhi it's going crazy, right? Scores 10 points. They call a timeout, stop the momentum, and then they go away from Kawhi at the end of the game, and you let Lowry take the game-winning shot to win a championship.
Are you sure he didn't go away at the end of the game?
Well,
Because he looked like he went south.
All I know is I didn't see him put up any shots, and it seemed
why
like
was
other
that?
guys were taking.
Why didn't he go demand
I
the
just
ball?
don't believe this is going to happen. My original pick was Toronto in 6. I'm sticking with it.
Oh, you weren't one of those Raptor fans who stood and applauded when KD went down.
No,
the
of
other
course
night,
not.
right?
But you know what? Fans are a little fickle in the beginning, and then they realize the seriousness of it. And I think that's when
true.
they did cheer him as he walked.
Okay. Shannon Sharpe, pile on.
You changed your
No, I'm not
pick,
gonna pile
right?
on Skip. No, I did. But that's neither here nor there. That was not
it
what the
doesn't
question
matter.
was about, whether
Just
or not I
forget
changed,
about
whether I changed my pick. Skip, look, the Golden State Warriors have an excellent chance of winning this series. I'm going to say excellent. I'll give them you know what? I'll give them a slightly better than 0 than what Rob gave them. I'll say they have between a 7 and 10% chance. Because here's the thing. If they can win Game 6, get it back to a Game 7, and the thing that you want to happen in a Game 7 is what? You want to get to the fourth quarter either tied or close enough that they can see you in their rear view. Because that's what the Cavaliers did to Golden State, Skip. They won Game 5. They went back home, won Game 6. And when the fourth quarter started, they were right there. And so, man, we had a 3-1 lead. The longest, Skip, here's the thing. Also, when you get an opportunity to step on someone's neck, especially in the sports analogies, you do it because you are a turned ankle or something bad happening to your star player, then all of a sudden the momentum. Because we know if Kawhi goes out for any extended, if Kawhi misses a quarter, the series is over. Because they're going to win and they're going to get that rejuvenation that we can do this. But Kawhi, sure enough, that old corn-rolled monster gonna put a stop to this tomorrow night, Skip Bayless.
Really?
So I don't want you to go get your hopes up real high. Think you're gonna come in here and gloat on Friday? Cause you're not.
That's interesting. You're still talking about the same number 2 who down the stretch of Game 2, the final 8 minutes, he just disappeared. And the final 3 minutes and 28 seconds of Game 5 the other night in his new house, he disappeared. That should have been his game. He had it in the palm of his gigantic hand, right?
Yes.
And go look at what he didn't do, because he didn't do much. Game 2, that was in his house. Game 5 in his house, sorry, no. So now we come back to your points, and you made all correct points. But here's what's happening. The deeper you get, you know this well from your days covering Pistons in the finals, the deeper you get into a finals series, the smaller the basket will look to the Toronto Raptors. This is a 3-point shooting series. The team that makes the most threes has won all 5 of the first games, right? You can just go back and trace it. Okay, Golden State, more threes in 2 and 5, and they won those games. To your point, 20-8 in threes in Game 5. So it's up to the Raptors to outshoot Golden State from the 3-point line at Oracle as the basket looks smaller and smaller as the stakes go higher and higher in closeout games. Closeouts are hard. You know it, and I know it, and Golden State really knows it because they're really good at closeout games. So now they get a final game at Oracle because they know for certain this is it. This is the last game at Oracle because the other night they weren't sure. Now they know they got a shot. This is the grand finale, and they also know that there's no more waiting for Godot, as in KD, because he's gone now. And for the first time all playoff long, it's over. There's no maybe, maybe not, maybe, maybe not. No KD, and you say no way. No way, no how.
Exactly.
And I say clear the decks, and there's a great way because it's all about Klay and Steph in that order. I trust Klay and Steph in that order, and I predicted Klay was going to be the MVP of the finals, and he is right on track. He will come up a little bigger than Steph. And I have been mostly disappointed in Steph until the other night when in the second half, after he'd gone 1 for 8 from 3 all the way down to the last stage of the game, he made the biggest 3-point shot of his playoff life when he just stepped right into that 3 that tied the game. Then who won it? Klay Thompson won it. Those two in the order, Klay and Steph, will win this game by making more threes. But the final point, go ahead. Do you want to make one?
Yeah, I just want, the only thing is when you talk about those guys, and Steph especially, is the author of that 3-1 collapse.
True.
And they lost Game 7 at Oracle.
They sure did.
So I'm just saying, they have a history. It's not like the shutdown place where you can't go and get a big win on the road. That's what bothers me, and it would be only fitting that they also would get closed out there.
But
because that's what usually happens when a juggernaut or a championship caliber team, that's had a dynasty going, usually the wheels fall off or something happens. I could easily see them losing by 10 points and losing that game at home, and that'll be the end of not only Oracle, but the end of the Warriors, their run, and they return back to being a really good team that's in the mix, but not a guarantee.
Okay, but I remind you, in 2016, the Cleveland Cavaliers had a true closer in Kyrie Irving. Not LeBron James, Kyrie Irving. And he closed that deal by making the shot of shots in Game 7 at Oracle. Toronto does not have a true closer because number 2 is not that guy. Trust me.
Yes, they do.
Nope.
Yes,
nope.
he is. He is
maybe
that guy.
maybe Van Vliet is. Maybe. That's who should have
But
taken the last shot.
also, Lowry plays a lot better on the road for whatever reason.
He does.
He
I give
does.
you that.
And the other thing is, I just think Kawhi's not, the stage, Shannon, is not going to be too big for him because he's played in the NBA Finals. He was the Finals MVP. If this was a young
It was
team.
an afterthought for that
Yeah,
team.
but if you go look at all the other guys on that team, they've been around, they've done that, they've been in big games. If this was a young team, like when Portland finally got on the big stage, remember? They couldn't handle it. This is not Portland. Toronto has been, they're 6-4 on the road during the postseason. That's an impressive record to win on the road in the playoffs.
Okay, I got one more point to throw at both of you. Golden State has yet to play a clean basketball game. The dynastic Warriors have played ugly, sloppy basketball in all 5 games, and it cost them 3, and they won in spite of themselves, especially the other night in Game 5. So they are 18 more turnovers so far. They've committed 18 more turnovers than Toronto has. Toronto has made 16 more free throws than Golden State has. So those two stats tell you it's about focus and desire. I think Toronto has played harder every game because they're attacking more. They're getting to the free throw line a lot more than Golden State is. Plus, Golden State's just throwing the ball all over the lot, bouncing it in the stands. And remember, down the stretch the other night, Golden State committed 2 blunders that should have cost them the game. Draymond steps across half court,
and then
DeMarcus Cousins has a moving pick foul. What are you doing? And they still won that game.
But Skip, the thing is that when you're a jump shooting team, when you're a three-point shooting team, you're probably going to lose the free throw battle because you're shooting the basketball from distance and you're not driving it. Toronto with Siakam and Ibaka, Van Fleet, Kyle Lowry, and Kawhi, they're putting the ball on the floor. They're trying to get to the rim.
They are.
They'll dive and kick. Yep. But these guys, but that's not what. So are you putting it? So now all of a sudden you seem like you have a lot more faith in old Steph. Now we know they're loose with the basketball, Skip. They're very loose with the basketball. So I'm not surprised that they have more turnovers than the Raptors because we've seen this. They haven't really been clean with the basketball in any of the series. They get loose. They let teams back in the ball game because they get careless with the basketball. But don't worry about it. Oh, Kawhi, he's been waiting for this moment for a long time to step out of Tim Duncan's shadow, to step out of the Spurs. It's the system. Oh, without Pop, what can he do without Pop? He's one of these old LeBron James, Kevin Durant. Yes, I can play within a system, but I'm a system unto myself.
The guy who turned down the last shot the other night. Way to go. You know, I trust him.
I bet he won't turn this one down. I bet he won't turn this one down Thursday night.
Philadelphia?
Yeah, and it bounced 4 times.
Did it go in?
Winner.
Was it lucky? Was it lucky, Rob Parker? Yes, it was.
Tom Brady's lucky.
He is
All
not.
right, gentlemen, we got to leave it here. Hard for me to believe that Golden State would lose all 3 home games in the finals, but we will find out.
Gonna lose all 3 of them, Jen.
All 3. That's
Believe
what
it.
happens when a
Find out,
dynasty's
Shannon.
wheels fall off.
Thank you
Believe
so much
it
for being here.
or not.
We really appreciate it, as always.
Thanks, Jen.
Coming up next, did the Warriors make a mistake playing KD the other night? We'll discuss that up next.
No mercy.
ESPN reports Kevin Durant flew straight to New York from Toronto to get an MRI on that injured Achilles. Many believe it is torn. Yahoo's Chris Haynes reports KD was nowhere close to 100% when he came back to play Monday night. Got to give it to KD. He did fight valiantly to get back on the court, though. We have got Bleacher Report's Rick Bucher in the house. Rick, what's going on with KD?
Well, ultimately, he's a lot of people are interpreting him going to New York as a distrust of the Warriors doctors, that he's going in another direction. My understanding is that he's meeting with the same doctor that did Kobe Bryant's Achilles. So this is more a matter of, I want to go to somebody who has a track record, who's dealt with this at a high level, as opposed to I'm done with the Warriors and I no longer trust them. We may get to that point with them as it seeps in what he has in front of us. I do know that he blocked out all of the people that were telling him this is a bad bet. this is a risk not worth taking. For the last week leading up to this playing in this game, he basically went dark on them. And he was only listening to the people that were supporting the idea that he wanted, which is, I want to find a way to get back on the court.
Because you kept telling us that a lot of his inner circle was saying, don't do it.
Okay. It's a bad risk. And ultimately, we knew this all along. KD wanted to play. And the question is going to be, as he looks at it, did the Warriors lead me into this decision where they could have protected me from myself because they know that I want to play? And they had to know. And I will say this, no matter what, the Warriors cannot say that they didn't know that this was a possibility. Now, whether they were telling KD it's a possibility or it's a probability, as the people that I talked to said, that's going to be the question. How did they portray it? And did they portray it accurately? Because when it happened, I have to tell you, it was not a surprise. It was a disappointment, but not a surprise.
Okay, do you believe the Warriors knew there was a pre-existing Achilles issue, that there was some kind of fraying or micro tear or maybe even partial tear?
The question is where it was and whether it was in the Achilles. Because I can only go by what they have said publicly, and whether they knew privately, they haven't disclosed that to anybody that I'm talking to, that they knew there was an Achilles issue. Now, I've also heard with this type of thing, even if it was an Achilles tear, there's nothing you can really do about it. You can try to protect it. I had one physician was surprised that he wasn't wearing anything, any kind of a sleeve, anything to kind of protect that he just went out there as is. That was a shock. So how much they knew, and this is part of the issue, to be honest with you, is the fact that it has not been clear from the very beginning. He goes from he can't even play in a 3-on-3 in a practice to now he gets a practice and now he's full good to go. It's just up and down. Where are we? Not full disclosure. And that makes you question, did they do this in order to continue to chase a championship, knowing what they could sacrifice, and ultimately got what they wanted, which is, we got another game at Oracle. We got another $3-5 million because we got a whole game. We still have the hope of making Skip Bayless look good and winning in 7. Was that informing their decision, knowing that, you know what, but this might cost KD his next season?
Go ahead, Shannon.
Because when you look at it, Rick, is that Boogie Cousins didn't practice one game and just start playing.
Right.
They let Boogie practice and practice and practice and practice, and then they played him. And for Steve Kerr, now I don't know if this is true, but Steve Kerr said it was relayed to him that he could not hurt himself any worse than he already was. If I'm not mistaken, the very thing that they probably told Isaiah Thomas when he was in Boston. Now, it's also, Skip, in 2017, Boston let their medical staff go. Now, quietly, I'll give it a year, 6 months, they're going to dismiss this medical staff because this is bad for business.
Yeah.
You can't have that guy out there miss a month, and then you bring him back in there, not on a minutes restriction, and this happens to him. You watch what I tell you. Now, Kevin Durant, it's going to be very interesting over the next, say, week to month, what starts to seep out, and what was Kevin Durant told, and what was he led to believe. Katie, you can't hurt it any worse than it already is, bro. Go out there and give us what you can. And now this man is not going to be able to play until 2021. The Warriors are wrong for this. Because, Rick, the thing that I asked Skip earlier today is that if the Warriors had a 3-1 lead, would they have played Kevin Durant?
Yeah.
Because if you answer no, you should not have played him in this situation because then you're telling me it was all about the win and not this man's well-being.
I feel as if this has informed the Warriors the entire time. There's been a desperation and a willingness to push the envelope. Andre Iguodala has told me I shouldn't really be playing right now, and yet he is playing. Now, he's in a different phase of his career, so you could argue, okay, weighing all of the sacrifice and the risk. Klay Thompson, in terms of where he is, they decided not to go game 3, but ultimately, we know how they handle their athletes and their players normally, which is, we're going to rest you. We're not going to take risks. If this is a regular season situation, there's no way that any of these guys would be playing. But it's a matter, and looking around the corner, is this really our last best shot? We're not going to win 3. This is our shot to win 3 in a row. Where does that put us in the pantheon of franchises? Sure. All of that is at stake here. The one other element, Chelsea Lang was on their training staff last year. What I've been told is they were slow to give her a contract. Now, people were singing her praises. I've even had one surgeon tell me if she was still here, he wonders if all of this would have evolved and where they had gone.
And then what happened?
She went to the Hawks. She went with Travis Schlenk, who left the Warriors, knew how valuable she was.
Because she was working miracles with Steph.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
So, look, it's not fair to say that she could have prevented this, but she was one more person who was exemplary when it came to their medical staff, who they let go, who is now not part of the decision-making process when it came to KD.
Okay. So the most troubling statement of all I've seen from a national reporter was from our guy Chris Haynes, Yahoo's Chris Haynes. He comes here occasionally and contributes to this show, as you do. And Chris, who's close with Kevin, went so far as to say Kevin Durant was nowhere near 100% for Game 5. My eye test told me before the game that the quote-unquote calf strain looked like it was 100% because I watched him warm up. There was no flinch, there was no grimace, there was no protecting, there was no favoring. He was full bore, full speed, pushing off, jumping, and to your point, no sleeve. There was no indication of any calf inflammation anymore.
Dunked in pregame.
Right, he was dunking. Okay, so that injury seemed to be in his rear view, yet Chris Haynes is saying nowhere close to 100%. Well, now I can only speculate or maybe even jump to assume that there was something going on with the Achilles that was troubling Kevin and that Kevin assumed the risk because in the end, it's up to him and he has to say, I'm going to die for the cause, quote unquote. I'm going to give myself up for my team because I love my team. And to Shannon's point, KD is very thin-skinned on social media, and I'm sure he felt like he was taking a beating. Come on, they've look what Clay rushed back and DeMarcus rushed back and
but not even just social media, but in the locker room.
Sure,
the feeling, the frustration. Where is he? The same thing that Kawhi Leonard went through with San Antonio. Are you with us or are you not with us?
Talk to it, Rick. Talk to Skip.
Can you play?
I need you to talk to Skip.
Can you play?
Yeah, but one guy was hurt and one guy wasn't. But that's a whole nother issue.
Don't do that, Skip. Don't do that, Skip.
I'm doing it. So it is interesting to me that Kevin went to New York. He is also very close with Dr. Marty O'Malley, who did his Jones fracture surgery in 2015. Remember, it took 3 surgeries to fix that, and Marty O'Malley finally fixed it. He's the Nets team surgeon, also contributes to the Giants. But in the end, it wasn't like Kevin stayed home and said, I'll just trust these doctors, because they got good orthopedics there also, obviously. He did go to New York, and that's a small indication to me that I'm not still with Golden State. You know, I get it. You want to go see other more prominent surgeons.
For sure. The fact that he's not having the MRI with the Warriors and having them examine it and then saying, I'm going to go see this other physician is an indicator that there may be a parting of the ways here.
Yep.
Rick, we're going to keep you around for the next segment, so we got to move
I thought Dr. Neil Elatrosh did Kobe
guys.
surgery.
Yeah,
Rick.
I think he did. But anyway, go ahead.
Up next, we're going to get y'all to make some predictions, Shannon. I know you'll be ready to weigh in on this one. Will the Raptors close out the Warriors tomorrow?
Yes,
We're
Shannon.
discussing that up next.
No mercy.
The Raptors lost Monday night by a point, but they're still just 1 win away from their first NBA title. The Warriors are favored by 2.5 tomorrow night at home, but they're going to have to get it done without Kevin Durant. We're joined once again by Rick Bucher. Rick, do you expect Toronto to close things out tomorrow night?
I do. Ultimately, I had going into the series, I had the Warriors in 6. I thought that the rest after knocking out Portland was going to allow them to recover and they could see the finish line. But I've seen this all year with this team. It's not that they're mentally not willing. It's that they are physically unable. And to Skip's point earlier about who's got the closers and who's got the proven closers, the Warriors obviously do, and that showed itself in Game 5. But that's if the game is close. That's if it becomes a single possession game. The reality is that hasn't been the case. And having been at Game 4, I was stunned in that game, knowing that they needed it, the Warriors got to a point where it wasn't about offense. It was, we can't stop Toronto.
I agree.
Defensively, they're can we outshoot them from three? Yes, but they're getting layups. Serge Ibaka is dominant. If we miss, Serge Ibaka is there to finish. And ultimately, I believe that combination of being able to score inside easily because of their size advantage and defensively, their ability to ratchet things up is going to be the difference maker. They were in position to finish this in Toronto, even with those closers, and ultimately couldn't get it done. As long as it's not a one-possession game, which it hasn't been in Oracle, I would expect that the Raptors are going to wrap this up.
Okay.
Well, I'm about to give old Rick Bucher an amen because I agree. Skip Bayless, everything over but the shouting. The benediction will be given tomorrow. Now, you keep telling me, look, the Warriors made 23s and they won by a point. You keep telling me they have yet to play a clean game, but Game 5 was the cleanest game of all the games they played in the playoffs. They've been loose with the basketball. They average about 17 turnovers. A couple of games, they were in the 18. So this is who they are, Skip. The question is, do you believe they'll make 20 more threes in order to stave this off? I do not. I do not believe that now there's no Kevin Durant that's going to allow Klay and Steph to relax, that's going to space the court. So now they can go back to say, we don't have to worry about KD. Kawhi's not going to have to exert any extra energy on the defensive end trying to worry about KD because I believe that affected his offensive end because KD got it going so early, he had to spend a lot of his time worried about how do I shut this off, and it affected his offensive end. That won't be the case tomorrow night, Skip Bayless. Look, I already know what they're going to do. They're going to bring out E40. They're going to bring out Oaktown 357, Too Short, Mac Drake. Even MC Hammer will be in the house.
He will be.
But it's going to be all for naught. It's going to be all for naught, Skip. Unfortunately, the last thing that people will remember about Oracle is that Toronto took the Warriors over their knee and closed the building down with a spanking of the Warriors' butt.
Really? Boy, I hope the Warriors are watching right now because that
Yeah, I hope they're
really
watching
well
too.
in that locker room. Now,
Well, I hope they're watching when you bet
over
me
the
4
knee
cases.
of the Raptors. Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
partner Shannon Sharpe has already informed me he gives Golden State no more than a 7 to 10% chance of winning tomorrow night
That is correct.
in the finale at Oracle.
Yeah.
7 to 10%. Yet, I don't know how this is happening, but Golden State remains a 2.5-point betting favorite in the game. Who knows how that could be? I don't know, because you both make very strong points. I will agree. I have zero evidence that Golden State can win this game when I look back at the 3 games they've played at Oracle this basketball season versus this team, because they've lost all 3 of them. And games, to your point, 3 and 4, Toronto dominated those games. Toronto terrorized them at home. They could not keep Lowry or Van Vliet from the basket, and once they just penetrate the lane, it's chaos. And they're getting shots, wide open threes here, there, and everywhere. And Toronto is too long. They're just too tall for Golden State. So I give you all of the above, but I'm going to tell both of you what I told Rob Parker. He's pro Raptors. He had Raptors in 6. He's sticking with it. This is his night of nights. You guys are ready to celebrate. The deeper you get into a finals, the smaller the basket looks to the underdog team. And I don't care what you say, the underdog is still Toronto. And as the closeouts keep getting deeper and deeper, we should have closed out 5. Now we got to close out 6 to stop a game 7 back in our place. The basket just starts looking small to 3-point shooters. This series has been decided each game by who made the most threes.
Sure.
I believe Golden State, especially in the grand finale at Oracle, when they know for sure this is it, there's no more KD and there's no more Oracle, this is it, they'll make more 3-point shots.
If they could make this a small ball game, which is their strength, and clearly the Raptors can play some of that, but the real advantage they have over the Warriors is playing with size. But not having Kevin Durant, who started at center.
He did.
In Game 5.
And he blocked a big shot early.
Kevon Looney coming in.
Yep.
There's some question as to whether he's going to be available. That's a huge difference. Now you have to play DeMarcus Cousins. Now you have to play Andrew Bogut. Now you have to play the Raptors game.
Yep.
And when you have those guys on the floor, now suddenly Marc Gasol and his ability to shoot the 3 versus the other two bigs, it shifts that dynamic a little bit. It shifts the advantage that the Warriors have in being able to play fast and small, and it goes back to Toronto and what they were able to do and why they've been able to dominate, whether it's Oracle or any place else. And here's the reality. I've been in Oracle from the beginning. I saw what it was when it started. There was an intimidation factor, no doubt about it. They would hit a couple threes. The crowd wouldn't even wait for the threes. They were already buzzing. And then when they would hit a couple threes, it would take it to another level.
Escalates. Yep.
Now you have an audience that sits there and they're waiting for the Warriors to get them going. They're not providing the energy. They're asking the team to get them excited.
I agree with that, except for tomorrow night. I think it'll be different because everybody knows this is the end. Right?
I would have hoped to have seen that in Game 4, and I did not.
Skip, let me ask you this. Do you believe Boogie Cousins will give you in Game 2 and 5? Will he give you that in Game 6? And can the Warriors keep Toronto off the glass? That's where Toronto stays in the series at. That is that they get multiple cracks at it because they're killing them on the offensive glass. So do you believe Boogie can give you in Games 2 and 5? Give you that in Game 6, Skip? Because we have not seen him put games together like that.
You got me. I don't trust him.
Yeah.
And I'm just being honest with you. Every time the ball's in his hands, I'm flinching, wincing, looking the other way because I'm fearful something bad will happen. And the other night, 6 good things happened because he made 6 baskets that I didn't think he could make. Yeah. He's going to have to play bigger. I don't know if Kevon Looney can just suck it up and just play through his pain because he got shut down the other night, but I think he'll try to go. I just have a feeling, and he makes them much better.
He does.
Fabulous insight, gentlemen. We will find out tomorrow night. Rick, thanks so much for being here.
You got it.
Way to go.
Still to come, will the Raiders be must-see TV on Hard Knocks this upcoming season? We'll discuss next.
No mercy.
The Raiders will be featured on the next edition of Hard Knocks this August. This news, despite owner Mark Davis saying it would be disruptive to be on the show. No doubt the Silver and Black will provide plenty of storylines with John Gruden, Antonio Brown, Vontez Burfict and company. I think it's going to be hilarious for the fans to watch, but Shannon, is this good or bad for the Raiders?
Well, it's just useful for what it is. As long as the guys don't try to play to the cameras, you'll be just fine. I remember we were the first team to do it back in 2001 when I was with the Ravens. And eventually you just forget they're there and you just carry on with your normal day. But then as I watched it over the years, I see guys try to play towards the cameras. As you mentioned, Jen, they have a lot of personality, led by their head coach and all the facial expressions that he make. A.B., Vontez Burfict, Richie Incognito. So, Skip, they have the cast of characters that you need to have a great Hard Knocks. As long as they don't play to the cameras, everything will work out just fine.
A.B. will play to the camera every second. John Gruden will play to this camera every second. That's who they are, what they do, and I think it'll be good for them. It will not be a distraction because it's going to help revitalize their mystique. Mark Davis also said that everybody wants to be a Raider. Now they can find out what it takes to become one. Well, I'm not going to go that far, but you can see inside them, and I think it'll put them a little bit back on the map. Do I expect them to be a playoff team? I do not, because remember, 13 of the Hard Knocks teams, only 5 have made the playoffs, and only 2 have even won a playoff game. So it can be a distraction, but they need it. You did. Yeah, but you guys were defending champs.
We did. We were. Skip, and that was his dad, Mark Davis's dad. That was the thing he would always ask any player. So you want to be a Raider? And so he wants to, we're going to find out, Skip. We're going to find out what it takes to be a Raider.
Yeah.
Great stuff, guys. That's going to do it for us today, though. We will be back on FS1 tomorrow morning at 9:30 Eastern.
Woo!
Have
Skip,
a
I just
great
keep whipping
Wednesday,
you.
everybody.
No mercy.
Thanks for listening to the Undisputed podcast. I'm Jenny Taft. Join us again at the same time tomorrow morning, 9:30 Eastern. We'll see you then.
Fox Sports 1 of 1.